Pranakasha livestream.
Hey folks, it's Matt at Pranakasha Productions, and today we are once again talking with Mr. Marc Zicree, otherwise known as Mr. Syfy, also very well known as the author of the Twilight Zone Companion, and the guy behind, ta-da,
Hey.
Space Command.
Yes.
So it's great talking to you again, Mark.
Thanks,
So
Matt.
the last time we saw each other was down at Comic-Con, right
Yes.
there, San
Yes.
Diego,
Yep.
eating lunch together.
It was the best lunch I ever had.
I know it was, and the food was great.
Well, the food was okay, but it was mainly
Yeah,
about the company.
the
The company
company,
is what made it wonderful.
and
Uh,
I also saw I got a peek at the bill, and it was very reasonable.
yes, yes, and no, it's terrific. I mean, I love the fact that in science fiction you get to meet, so many people, writers and fans, and I mean, it's an I call it a big tent. Whereas, if you
Yeah.
want to go somewhere to meet Brad Pitt or something, good luck, you'd get tasered. And so I love the inclusivity of science fiction. It certainly has made me what I am today because I got to be mentored by, Ray Bradbury and Ted Sturgeon and Harlan and all these wonderful, amazing writers that I'd grown up, worshiping. So, and you could meet
Yeah.
at conventions, and it was just terrific.
Yeah, didn't you actually, I think in our last interview you said you actually went to Ray Bradbury's house?
Yes, yes. What happened was I did a piece of work that
Okay.
Ray came across, and he called me because he really loved it, and he invited me to the house in Cheviot Hills, and we just hit it off. And so then for the next decade, more than a decade, until his death, I would go over about once a month, and we just hang out and talk about life and career and art. And we started working on a mini series that was a sort of a sequel to the Martian Chronicles. I found there were 22 Mars stories that weren't included in the Martian Chronicles, but covered the
Really?
same chronology. And so I created something called Ray Bradbury's Lost Mars that was an 8-hour miniseries. And we still very much hope to do that. But it also led to the complete
Oh.
Martian Chronicles, which included all of that stuff. And I wrote an introduction to that, which was a singular honor. So it was just spectacular to know Ray for all that time. He was one of a kind.
Okay, so this new Martian Chronicles thing is that so that must be on the docket for you have like six different
Yeah, shows.
projects in the works right now
and
besides
and,
Space
and more
Command?
and more.
Okay.
But yeah, it just keeps going. But with Lost Mars, Ray gave me an option for a year to take it around, and I basically reached out to my friend Michael Ninkin, who was one of the great directors on Ron Moore's Battlestar Galactica, and the idea was that Michael and I would produce it together. He was also an executive producer on Defiance, and I would write it, and Michael would direct it. And it seemed like just a dream come true. And we took it out to try to sell it, and we couldn't get a buyer, and that was just stunning to
Hmm.
me. And Ian McCaig, my friend who designs all my major projects and who, designed Darth Maul and Queen Amidala and all these great Star Wars characters, he was aboard to be
Really?
the designer on it, and it would have been spectacular. I mean, I have the. I mean, if you look right here, this is right here is the. It says Lost Mars. This is the my work folder on it, and just great. I interviewed Ray about all of the stories, and I have that stuff on tape, and you know amazing.
Well, now that humanity is on the eve of actually moving to Mars,
Yes. So they
it
say.
might be the time to get it going again.
Yes, and so once
Wow.
once I get the Showrunners Network off the ground with the shows I'm doing, the Rod Serling project and the Rockney O'Bannon project, and Mark Ferguson, Hawk Ostby, who developed The Expanse for television, all of that. And I just talked to a friend of mine who produced Napoleon Dynamite. Now he's a showrunner in animation, and the project that I created with Michael Reeves, who won the Emmy for Batman the Animated Series. We created a show called Dante's Station that's one of the six, and it's sort of a future noir series about a New York cop and his extremely problematical teenage daughter. He's coming off a really bad divorce, and they end up relocating from Manhattan to a mining colony near the core of the galaxy, and there's sort of this shaft city that's almost like Casablanca in space, and it's about how the two of them get enmeshed in what's going on there. So it's a really cool show.
Wow.
So it just keeps going. I just, every day's Christmas. I just wake up and work on stuff that fascinates me.
Now, do you consider yourself retired?
No.
I was going to say, you're awfully
No.
busy if you were.
No, and in fact, here's in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have the DVDs
Oh,
of
Space
Space
Command.
Command,
All right.
the Blu-rays and DVDs to send out. That's the cover proof. And no, it was funny because this past weekend I was invited to the Paperback Collectibles show, and because I love 1950s science fiction paperbacks, and they gave me a table to sell copies of the new Twilight Zone companion and all my novels and so forth, and have fans come up and sign. I could sign their copies, which was a thrill for many of them. And
Hopefully take selfies too.
yeah. But I said to Elaine, my wife who was with me, I said, I'm so glad that the Twilight Zone companion was not the high point of my career. Can you imagine 40 years later having had nothing happen, and you look back to this book you wrote in your 20s, it's like, well, yeah, I wrote that and I had high hopes, but nothing happened. Fortunately, I'm very proud of the Twilight Zone companion, and I just wrote the updated version last year. But I
Is
have
that the one I have?
no, I think you have the second edition.
I have the second.
Yeah, there's a new one which has 100 new pages of material. It's got 500
Oh.
new photos. It's got links to audio and video rarities. It's really the ultimate thing. So
It's available on Amazon, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I'll have to
yeah,
get that too.
yeah. And
Okay.
it's because again, what happened was when I wrote the Twilight Zone companion, people kept telling me stories about the Twilight Zone or stories about Rod Serling from personal experience, and it was not in the book, and I thought this was important to include. And also, when I wrote the book back in the late 70s and early 80s, if you wanted to watch Rod Serling, a film of Rod Serling giving a talk or whatever, you'd have to go to a university archive, put the 16 millimeter print on a moviola, an old style editing machine, and watch it on a window like this big. Now it's all on the internet. So I thought, well, Jesus, I can share all this amazing stuff with the fans. I mean, like, for instance, there was one guy who, when he learned that Rod Serling co-wrote Planet of the Apes, he re-edited
I didn't know
Planet of
that.
the Apes into a half-hour black and white Twilight Zone episode using Rod's narration from different Twilight Zone episodes that fit Planet of the Apes. And so I can link to that now and people can watch that. And I wrote a fake chapter of the Twilight Zone companion as if that had been a real episode that was then made into the color movie. And it's just like a lot of fun stuff. And so I had a great time.
Speaking of the Planet of the Apes, so one of the things that comes to mind is like, how did it go? Get your stinking hands off me, you damn dirty ape.
Yeah, perfect.
So, now, did Charlton Heston come up with that line, or was that in the script?
It was in the script. But also, Rod wrote this first version of the script that had the Statue of Liberty reveal and all that stuff. But it was set in a very technologically advanced civilization. And then they realized it would cost too much. And so they needed to make it, much more kind of like primitive. And so they hired another writer to just kind of do those changes. And so Rod's version of the script, they recently did as a graphic novel, and it's really fun to read it. It's just really cool because it's a different version, but an equally valid one. And so if anyone wants to, if you just Google Rod Serling's Planet of the Apes graphic novel, you'll find it. And
okay, interesting.
It was quite wonderful, quite wonderful.
Wow. Okay. Well, again, I mean, I think I said this last time, but is there anybody in the industry that you don't know?
I mean, it's like some people are good friends. Some people are just people where I've crossed their paths, like Spielberg or James Cameron, whom I admire, of course. And but I've been very lucky. I've gotten to. I mean, I wrote a book with Guillermo del Toro. How cool is that? And I've been very, very blessed. I don't have a lot of. I don't think I have any regrets, really. I mean,
okay. How about Quentin Tarantino?
I've met him when Frank Darabont was shooting The Green Mile. Frank invited me onto the set, and Tarantino was there, and we chatted. But then later, I ran into him in a restaurant, and he just kind of looked like daggers at me because he didn't remember who I was, and I thought he's kind of mean. So I like his films, but I don't need to hang out with him.
Okay.
So, but again, it's just a matter of personal style and personal taste,
All
and
right.
that's okay.
And now last time you were talking about how you were hanging out with Neil deGrasse Tyson at the
Yes.
gym. Have you met any other
Well, he's now,
significant
and actually
figures at the gym?
off of that, we cast him in Space Command. He's now in Space Command. You can actually watch him in one of the episodes. If you go on Mr. Sci-Fi, my YouTube channel, you just type in Ripple Effect, and that's the episode we did during the pandemic, where our actors shot their own scenes, and we directed them long distance, and he's in it. So really, really fun. Because at first he was just advising me on a science issue
Okay.
related to the story point, and then I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, you want to be in this?" And it was like, "Sure."
Well, that's cool.
It was really fun. It was really
Oh,
fun.
that's really neat.
He was terrific. Yeah, I loved working with him.
Great. Well, the reason I asked you today was to mostly to get an update on
Yep.
Space Command. So, I
Yeah.
mean, we can talk about anything, but that's kind of what I had in mind. But
Yeah, you bet. I'm happy to. Space Command is my major project right now. It's a hopeful vision of the future. It's a show that I wanted to inspire people like Star Trek inspired me when I was a kid. Because you watch. I just did a video I'm about to post about my opinion about Picard, which comes at a very interesting intersection of two things. The BBC just named Far Beyond the Stars the single most remarkable episode of Star Trek ever,
all
and I
right,
came up with that episode. I came up with that storyline, and
right,
and then I've been watching the first 3 episodes of Picard, and they've got. One guy has a cigar and he's smoking, and another guy, and then all the characters are cursing and using language that's really not fit for family viewing, and
not very
it's like,
TNG-ish.
yeah, and you can't really sit down with your family and watch that show without cringing because of just the way they're doing things. And there's yeah, and so I thought, well, I wanted to create something that would be a family show, something that would inspire people and say we can take responsibility for the future, we can make a better future, and if we just come together. And so my fans have given me over $3 million.
Great,
It's now I've just locked down financing for the coming year, so we can
great.
shoot the rest of the first season, and it just keeps going.
Oh,
I mean, we're shooting hour 6 right now. We've
okay. Stop for a sec.
Sure.
So you said you locked down financing. So that means you got a major investor, or
Oh,
you got a major
yep.
studio to back it, or what?
One of our investors has been very generous to us. We
Okay.
sell Space Command shares for $7,500 each, as you well know,
Yes, I
and
do.
uh, and basically I've got a physical studio. I've basically got a building that I go to, and it's got spaceship sets in it, and all that stuff, wardrobe, and we shoot there. And so the one of my investors, I crunched the numbers for what it would cost to shoot ongoingly through the upcoming year.
Okay.
And it doesn't include post-production, doesn't include visual effects, so there's other monies to raise. There's a thing
Sorry,
going
my
on.
communicator's beeping me.
Oh, well, you're a popular guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you transport up the ship now, I'll just continue
Okay,
talking.
no, go ahead.
Yeah,
I
but
turned it off. Hopefully it's on silent now.
no, that's great. I love it. Um, but the bottom line of all of this is that he gave I crunched the numbers, and I figured out that to shoot the rest of Space Command, just principal photography and
Hmm.
at least the first pilot of the showrunners network, cost about 450,000, which is like a bargain when it
Hmm.
comes to television production. I mean,
Yeah,
Star
that's
Trek.
like 10 minutes of
Yeah,
Picard or something.
it's their catering budget. I mean, it's like literally, it costs over $10 million per hour to make Star Trek Discovery. It was $15 million an hour to make Game of Thrones, and so we're bringing stuff in for like,
Okay, so that's 3 minutes of
yeah,
Discovery.
yes. And so basically, because I really wanted to cover some ground, because we've shot 5 hours of Space Command so far, plus a prequel radio play and graphic novel that we've been putting out,
Mhm.
and but so now we're shooting hour 6, and it's going great, no problems, and and we've written the entire first season. Elaine and I will go back in and do tweaks on it, and
Cool.
it's totally exciting. But I'll still need to sell Space Command shares and raise money through Kickstarter and so forth to do things like you know making the Blu-rays and DVDs, and hiring visual effects guys, and it's not it's an ongoing process, because
Okay.
surprisingly just a few grand really helps, because for instance, I need like a certain amount of money, like 13,000 to manufacture the Blu-rays and DVDs for the first 2 hours. Well, you're always robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I don't want to stop actively shooting while we're doing that. So if someone comes up and says, "Hey, here's 13 grand," or they'll buy 2 shares of Space Command or whatever. Surprisingly, a little can go a long way,
That's good.
as opposed to the studios who just burn money. So,
Right.
mhm.
Last time I talked to you, or I guess one of the topics at lunch
Yeah.
was um, you were building a set and there was this alien that was a
Yeah.
big deal. And
Yeah.
did you shoot that yet, or is it still
We're
in the?
about to. We're about
Okay.
to. In fact, I'll show you the head of the alien. Ugh. Here's the prototype head, which
Ooh.
is pretty cool. And there's gonna be lights on this thing and porcupine quills, and it's gonna be 8 feet
Ooh.
tall. It's really cool. And so we have built an alien spaceship that
Okay.
that really looks like nothing you've ever seen before. It's designed by Eric Rodriguez, who designed our creature. And yeah, in the next few weeks we'll be shooting what we call the haunted house, which is all the scenes in that alien spaceship. And I can't wait. It's gonna be great fun. And and just the like last week we shot what we call the departure lounge scene, and that was on a departure lounge in a space station orbiting Earth. So that was
Oh.
incredibly fun. We had commercials for interstellar space lines and travel posters that we did up, and all sorts of stuff. And I also had the extras in different costumes I've gathered from movies like Fifth Element and Forbidden Planet, and on and on. It was just like for every science fiction freak, if you look in the background at all the people, you'll just laugh your ass off, because there's just so many science fiction references. I
Is
myself,
Robbie the robot going to be in there?
not yet, but it's interesting because one of my high school pals back years ago built a Robbie the robot, and now that's
Oh,
what he
cool.
does for a living. He makes copies of Robbie the robot and Gord and all these robots. So I could definitely call Fred Barton and say, "Hey, you want to put Robbie in an episode?" And I think that'd be way cool. So
It'd be
that's
cool seeing like a bar scene, and like in the
yes,
background, there's Robbie the robot
yes,
there at the bar sipping a drink
exactly, exactly.
or
That
attempting to.
It'd be super fun. And again, it's like, years ago I met Marvin Miller, who was the voice of Robbie in Forbidden Planet. And I mean, these people are like, icons to me. I mean, there's nothing like it when you meet one of your heroes. So I think that's, yeah. And the fans often suggest things to me that then become part of Space Command. Like, for instance, I hadn't thought of Robbie the robot. Now that I have, I'll probably make that happen. I think I will. And
Okay.
that'll be really fun.
Then you can put me in the credits. Matt Weiss, Robbie the robot idea guy.
Yes, or I can have you in a spacesuit. I can have you in a spacesuit talking to Robbie at the bar,
Ooh, I
and
like that.
that'd be super fun. I think we've got 14 spacesuits now from Alien, and
Can I
uh,
bring my cello?
yes, you could. That'd be pretty funny, actually. And it's that'd be very funny. So cool.
Wow. Okay. So, um, well, it goes on and on.
Yes,
So you're shooting that,
yes,
and I guess I need to go back over to your YouTube channel because there's some stuff I've missed apparently.
yes. There's a
So
lot. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I was wearing an outfit from Space Patrol, which is this terrific live science fiction show that aired from 1950 to 55. And that was just super because it was a big inspiration. I never saw it when it was on the air initially because I was too young, but they did reruns of it in the 80s on a show on USA Cable called Night Flight, and that's where I got
Okay.
the bug for that show, and it was super fun.
Wow. Now, I'm afraid to ask this question because I hope you say no.
Okay.
But at one point you were talking about getting your hands on some of the pieces of the set from The Expanse. Now,
Yes.
did that ever happen?
Not yet. No. And
Good.
I've been talking. I've been in conversation with Naren Shankar, whom I know from the
Okay.
Star Trek days, and of course, I'm doing a new project with Mark Ferguson and Hawk Ostby, who were showrunners on The Expanse as well. I also got a
Yeah.
call about the possibility of getting the sets from the Orville, and again,
Well,
I
wait
mean,
just a second. Oh, this is terrible news. Okay,
yes,
first off, people are still hoping that The Expanse has a possibility of doing something in the future.
yes, 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 yes.
Um, and then same thing with the Orville. We haven't even seen the Orville season 3.
No, it hasn't aired.
So,
It's been shot. So
um,
yeah.
but we do know that the sets on the season 3 are pretty much revamped.
Yes,
Maybe
that's right.
because there's a time travel story or whatever. There's some reason, but the sets look totally different. So
Yeah.
hopefully, when you say you're getting the sets from the Orville, you're
Well,
talking about the old ones.
someone just approached me with that, but I don't think it's going to come to fruition.
Okay.
But I actually, it's funny with The Expanse. I just finished reading all the novels, and
You mean, you have time to read books
oh, sure,
with your
oh yeah,
schedule?
I'm usually reading several books simultaneously.
Wow.
Read voraciously, but
Are you actually reading them or are you listening to audiobooks?
both, both. I read The Expanse book in, I go to the gym 3 times a week, so I might read it on the treadmill, or if I'm waiting for,
Okay.
an order at a fast food joint to come up, I'll read a few pages.
Wow.
Um, but in The Expanse, the point where they ended the series, the
Hmm.
next book jumps like 30 years.
Yeah, I've heard
So
that. Yeah.
so if they do bring back the show, and I hope they do, it would be a major jump, and the characters
All
would all
new sets.
and all the
Okay.
characters will be older. So I think that's, they'll do whatever they do. But I am now talking directly to several of the top auction houses about either donating or selling me at very low cost the major science fiction props they and costumes they have, because whereas someone might not particularly want a spacesuit from Red Planet for their collection, I can use it. And like,
Right.
we just had a scene in a hospital on a space station orbiting Jupiter, and I bought the sleep pod, one of the sleep pods from Passengers, and we redressed it, and it was terrific. It really, and then we had sort of data screens and consoles from Cloverfield Paradox, and we build out of our own stuff as well, but that
Right.
helps augment things and give us more
Hmm.
production value. So it's just, and then sometimes people throw stuff out and I carry it home. For instance, the Departure Lounge, I'm about to do a video on how I put together a set, because people would probably think, well, you're the showrunner, you're your production designer, or your art director comes to you with sketches and you approve them, and then on the day you show up and the set is built. Not with Space Command. I mean,
Right.
literally the set we just had, there were four white leather chairs, two end tables with video screens going, showing video, commercials for interstellar space lines, and this incredible futuristic table that was part of the ticketing desk. And all of that stuff, at various points over the last year or so, people in my neighborhood left on the curb, and I
Yeah.
got my
Yeah.
dolly and I brought them home, and
That looks
bang,
cool.
yeah, we have a set. Yeah, exactly. Because I'm not proud, I'm not arrogant. It's like, it's not, this is beneath me. No, if I can use it, I'll grab it. You
Well,
know.
this is one of those rare times where I can one up you on this one. I happen to know because I just interviewed her on my channel and we went to the same high school. The person that she literally owns Viking Lander number 3.
Huh. Wow.
And it's on right now, it's at the Museum of Flight, Boeing
Wow.
Museum of Flight in Seattle. But
Wow.
when it's done, it's back in her possession. And that thing is a real thing. It's not a mock-up. Like
Wow.
it could have landed on Mars.
Yeah, that's great. That's cool.
So
It's like,
top that.
well, I mean, and the thing is that science fiction has so much, science and science fiction both have so many cool things. I mean, it's just like, everywhere you turn, there's amazing stuff, and I'm just thrilled to be part of it. I mean, I've been to JPL, hence the hat, which you can read
Oh,
backwards.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've been to NASA, and I've been to Vandenberg, and I mean, because I talked to a number of scientists and military guys, and it's just amazing. I what Elon Musk is doing is beyond incredible. I mean, I never
yeah.
ever thought in my life that I would see a silver bullet nose spaceship, that's planned to be shot to Mars. I mean, that was the stuff
Yeah.
I was reading about, that Heinlein was writing in the 50s. It's like,
It's
wow.
exactly like it looks like one of the rockets they had on those Bugs Bunny
Yeah,
episodes
I know,
with
but this is it.
Marvin the Martian,
Yeah,
you know?
this is Elon Musk's Starship, and how cool is that?
Yep,
That's just great.
that's for
So,
sure.
mhm.
Whew. Wow. So, okay. So back to Space Command. I'm
Yeah,
going to try to pull us back to that again.
sure, you bet.
So you're going to are you able to say who is going to be in this scene?
Um,
Uh, Like, is
Yeah,
Robert Picardo in it? And
sure. I mean, we're bringing Bob back. We're bringing Doug Jones back.
great.
This as characters. We sadly we lost Mira Furlan, of course. So
Right.
we've rewritten how she ends up in the show because I didn't
Mhm.
want to recast the role. She was
Right.
inimitable and wonderful, and so we're giving her a sort of a fitting ending as a heroic ending in the show. But we're going to have Armin Shimmerman. We're going to have Ethan Phillips. We're gonna have Christina Moses from A Million Little Things, who played Spock's daughter in my Sulu episode that I did. Who else? Who else do we have coming? Well, also in Sweet Haven, the project I'm doing with Rockne O'Bannon, who created Farscape and so forth. We have Veronica Cartwright, we have Barbara Bain, we have Michael Harney from Project Blue Book, and Orange is the New Black. We've got Bob Picardo in that. We've got Gates McFadden in that.
Oh, cool.
It's
You
just a
got like the
phenomenal.
whole. Well,
Yeah,
now you got to
James
get Brent
Bond.
Spiner in there.
Yeah, that's true. I've talked to him,
Oh,
but
cool. Have
James
you read his
Franco.
latest book?
Not yet. No.
It's really good. I think
Uh,
that, in my humble opinion, I think the title is a little misleading
yes.
because the book is called Fan Fiction.
Uh,
So you
uh,
think it's going to be about like Star Trek fan fiction or
yeah.
something,
No.
but really it's kind of a noir detective story, and he is the character in it. It talks
That's
about Brent Spiner, kind of
yeah.
a fictionalized Brent Spiner, but what he
Yeah.
said was he sells it as a fictionalized thing so that he doesn't have to risk being sued,
Yes.
but a lot of the stuff is based in real life and maybe
Huh,
exaggerated a little bit.
that's interesting.
And but there's an audiobook that's really good because there's quite a few Star Trek alumni in the
Wow.
book that play themselves,
Oh, how fun.
and those people provided the voice characters for
That,
themselves in the
that's great.
audiobook.
That's
It's
really fun.
really well
Well, that's
done.
years ago,
Yeah.
Anthony Boucher, who was a science fiction and mystery writer and also the editor of the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, wrote a mystery called Rocket to the Morgue, and he took all the science fiction writer friends he had and under different names had them as characters in the book. And so again, it's that same notion of using writing what you know,
Yeah.
and but it's yeah. I mean, it's fun. I've been talking. I have talked to LeVar. I've talked to
Great.
John Delancey. I talked to Jonathan Frakes. I mean, I know all these people. LeVar
Okay,
Burton.
here's a really hot. This is totally in my mind because I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. What about Avery Brooks?
Well, Avery's a little bit of elusive, but you never
Thing
know.
is, that's what for some reason everybody says that.
Hmm.
But from what I know from a source of one of his close friends, which
Yes,
is Sirach Lofton, who played
yes,
Jake, says that actually he's quite interested in doing roles, but
it's great.
this is what
So
I heard. What I
I
heard is he got blacklisted
I don't know. I mean,
for some reason. Well, this is what I heard,
yeah.
and I don't know if it's true or not, but apparently he was quite vocal about the treatment of people on the sets,
Mm,
all the way down to the janitors and everything. So he
mm,
was really big in the movement of like sticking up for everybody that it
that's
takes
great.
to run a
Yeah.
thing, and then that got him on the outs with the Hollywood bigwigs.
Well,
So I don't know
it's
if that's
possible.
true or not, but
Yeah, and that kind of stuff never affects me. The only thing I want to know is if someone's going to show up and really bring their A game. And when I
yeah.
first met Avery on the set of Far Beyond the Stars when I went to visit it, the day that they were also shooting my Sliders episode at Universal. So I had two studios shooting my work. I got photos of myself in the
Huh?
same clothes with the two different casts. But it was he was very gracious and he was directing the episode as well as starring in it. And
Oh,
I
I
thought,
didn't know he directed it.
yeah, yeah. What happened was it was interesting because I was good friends with Armin Shimmerman, still am, and so I went on the set, and they were shooting a scene in the magazine office, that's in the
Right?
episode. So it looked like the most boring place in the world. I have a cast photo with them, and they just all look like 1950s, squares. And but Avery was directing a scene, and he kept looking at me and looking at me, and finally at the end of the scene, he said, "All right, everybody, take lunch break." And then I came up to him and said, "Hi, Mr. Brooks. I'm Marc Zicree. I came up with the story." And so um, he said, everybody, stop." And then he put his arm around me and he turned to me and he said, "Say to them what you just said to me." And I said, "I came up with this story." And Avery Brooks said, "He came up with this story." And they all applauded. And it was great. It was great, and I thought it was very gracious of him, very very sweet to do that because writers are not often credited as much as they might be. So,
Yeah,
but
okay, there's a topic we could dig into.
sure.
So, I mean, it always ends up with you got to have a good script, right? If you don't have a decent script, you've got nothing, right?
You have to have something
Um,
you can film for a certain amount of money. I mean, if you look
yeah,
at all the TV shows and movies, they certainly are not all great scripts. I would say very few of them are, but
yeah, but
clearly,
then when you have one that is a really good script, everybody loves it.
mm,
But yet, it seems like the writers get paid nothing.
that well, no, actually, there's a dividing line, and I'll tell you about it. Also,
Okay,
by the way, there are many, many, many great scripts that never get made,
okay,
sadly, and I want to rectify that with many of my friends. But um, if you're in the Writers Guild, you actually get paid very well. And
okay,
I mean, I at this point, I'm sort of, not paying myself my normal rate because I wouldn't be able to shoot Space Command if I paid myself, what I normally would get.
okay.
But it's basically there's writers who are not in the Writers Guild and writers who are. Writers who are generally make six figures if they're
Oh,
working actively 6 to 7 figures or more.
even
But
like TV show writers get that
oh yeah, oh
much?
yeah. I mean, every year of my, first 20 years of my career, I was earning six figures, working in television. And
Okay, I got to count the zeros. So let's see
well, I
here.
mean, let's just
So
say
that
that
means you're making more than 100,000 a year, right? That's what you're
I've earned
saying.
I've earned millions of dollars as a writer,
Ooh,
and
good.
so I have no complaints. And the Twilight Zone companion, of course, also did very, very well. It sold 500,000 copies and still going strong. So I mean,
Yeah, but you only make like $1 a book or something like that,
yes,
right?
yes, but on the other hand, I don't have to
Okay.
print them. I don't have to distribute them. I don't have to do anything.
Okay.
So it's still been Twilight Zone's been very good to me. But
However, you're living in LA, so I mean, it costs $50 for a hamburger there, right?
well, but I'm in a place. I'm in rent controlled bliss, and so I'm fine. I have no complaints. But but the
Sorry.
point is that writers in TV, writers run series television, and
Okay.
that's why I'm in television rather than in features, because in features the writer is treated like garbage, and
Oh, okay.
unless he's directing what he's writing, like Guillermo del Toro, years ago he told me that he viewed himself as a writer first, and he was a director so that he could get his scripts made. And and so now he thinks of himself more as a director because he's done so much. But it's I mean, I just was very committed to getting my work made, and over 95% of what I've written has gotten made. So
Okay,
I'm
so do the writers also get residuals?
yes, yes. Except in
Okay.
animation, in some cases in animation, they didn't. I started in animation with Smurfs and He-Man and real Ghostbusters and so forth. But in live action, you get residuals, though now they have buyouts if you're writing for certain cable things or internet things. It's all over the place. But I have no complaints. I mean, I got paid well, and
Okay.
now my, as I said, my fans have sent me over $3.5 million, and so what have I got to complain about? Nothing. I mean, most
Right.
of the money, the vast percentage of that money is going actually to making Space Command. I'm not pocketing it, but since I love doing it, it's the same as if I were, building a yacht or something. It's as much fun as anything I could imagine doing. You know, so.
Right.
I'm
Very interesting.
yeah, it's fun.
Hmm.
It's fun. Money's useful. Money can actually be very useful.
So when did this Writers Guild thing happen?
The writers fought for the establishment of a union for film feature writers. That started, I think, in the late 20s, early 30s. And by the time television came along, it was very well established.
Really?
And yes, and not all writers working in film or TV are Writers Guild members. The company has to be what's called Writers Guild signatory. But any movie or TV show that's from a major studio, generally those are covered under the Writers Guild, and you get
Hmm.
pension health. There's many many things to recommend it.
Because I was just watching William Shatner's show Chaos on the Bridge,
Yes.
which had all kinds of backroom stories of stuff that happened during Star Trek, the original series,
Uh-huh.
including like they had a problem with every time someone went to the bathroom and flushed the toilet, it would ruin their shot because you could hear it. Or they had pigeons up in the rafters and they had to get the
Funny.
pigeons out. And anyways, but there was a lot in there where a lot of the writers got really pissed at Gene Roddenberry because he would rewrite their scripts and then put his name on it.
Yeah.
So what was going on? I mean, were they all part of the Writers Guild?
Yes, they would have been. But the thing about that is that when you're a freelance writer, those who are the writers on staff, writer producers, they take the script and they can do whatever they want with it. They've bought it. So the only time you have power over your material is if you're a story editor or a producer on the show. That's why I, have risen up to executive producer slash showrunner, because I have total control over what I do and over what I write and what gets made. But also, you have to be trained up in the right way. For instance, I never credit jump. Like when I was a producer on Sliders or on Friday the 13th series, even if I did a page one rewrite, the freelancer can't know the show as well as you do because you're doing it every single day.
Right.
And so even if I did a page one rewrite on a script, I wouldn't put my name on it because first of all, it wasn't appropriate. And secondly, that would give me half of the residuals that would normally go to that writer. And that might be his only sale that year. Whereas I would be
Hmm.
earning a weekly, amount that was very handsome. And so, but on Star Trek: The Next Generation, they were always, putting their names on the scripts and getting,
Okay.
the residuals and all that stuff. I just didn't, I don't approve of that because it's just, it screws then really you don't have many freelancers nowadays. Television is very different now than it was when I started in the late 70s.
Hmm. So like the writers of like Star Trek Discovery or whatever, they're just on
No,
salary. Is that how it
no.
works?
Well, no. The way it works is they're all in the Writers Guild. All of them would be, and they would get probably a weekly producer's salary, and then if they write scripts above that, they'd probably get paid script fees as well.
It's kind of
I
like a
mean,
bonus type of
yeah. Well,
thing.
entry level for a staff writer on a major show is around 200 grand.
Oh, really?
So and a
Oh, they're
showrunner
doing good then.
and
Okay.
a showrunner is earning over $1 million a year on a show. If he created that show, it's easily $1 million a year.
Okay. Do you happen to know how much the editors make? I happen to know one of them
Well,
a bit.
there's two different kinds of editors. There's editors who are working in indie film or web series or whatever, and then there's union editors working on big features and big TV shows, and they get a
Okay.
decent salary. They can buy big houses and all of that.
Well, okay. So the editor that I know, and he just a couple days ago corrected me on the pronunciation of his name.
Mhm.
And it's not like we're buddies. It's just that me and him exchange some direct messages on Twitter occasionally. His
On
name is Chad Rubel,
Okay.
and I believe that's the proper way to pronounce it.
Mhm.
And he's one of, I believe, 3 editors for Star Trek Discovery.
Hmm.
And he, for a while, he was lamenting that the season end, and now I'm unemployed, and I need a gig between
Yes.
now and the next season. Anybody
Well,
know any projects I could do? He
cool.
was putting that out on Twitter.
Yeah. Well,
So it sounded like it didn't
yeah,
sound. I was figuring like he probably makes maybe 100,000 a year or something
maybe.
because he's talking about he needs to pay his rent and pay for food and stuff. So it's not like he's rolling in dough.
Well, here's the reason, and here's the problem, which is back when you were making the original Star Trek or Twilight Zone, or whatever, a season might be 39 weeks,
Okay.
and so as a result, you were basically employed for the entire year if you were in a production job or whatever. And now that series orders are like 8 episodes, 10 episodes, maybe 13, you've got to be working on several shows over the course of a year to be able to have a regular income
And hope
because
they don't overlap.
yeah, but also most people who work crew, they have their studio rate, which is usually their union rate. Then they'll have a lesser rate for independent film or web
Mm.
series or whatever, or cutting someone's reel because it's better to earn 100 or 200 bucks in a day than nothing,
Right.
and so but again, it's the endless challenge of when you're in the creative arts of making a living. And
Right.
I have a book coming out next month called Greenlighting Yourself, which is about how you can use all this, the internet and digital filmmaking and all these things to have a career as a writer, director, producer, actor, whatever. And
Or all of the above.
yes, and one thing I say in that book, I try to shoot down all the advice that's just total bullshit. Like you've got to have a great script. No, you don't. But you have to have a script you can shoot. But one thing I say is sometimes when you pursue a creative life, you can make a living with it. But sometimes you can't, and then there's nothing wrong with having a B job, working wherever. that pays the bills, so that in your off hours you can write or direct or produce. You know, the image
Right.
of hitting the jackpot. There are many people doing wonderful work that, you know, I mean, for instance, like everyone assumes that actors are rich if they're known, but you go to the Star Trek conventions, and I'm so glad that these actors who
That's where they make a lot of their money, is at the conventions.
well, I'm so glad that an actor who maybe worked 3 days back in 1966 can earn, you know, thousands of dollars signing photos of themselves, because um, you know, actors didn't used to be able to sell photos of themselves. They were supposed to print up the photos themselves, sign it, and give them away free. And at first, when they started charging, people were offended, but I wasn't offended because I knew that these people were not wealthy. I remember I was once at Rene Auberginois' house, and he said regarding his house, he said, "This is the house that Benson bought and Deep Space Nine saved." And that was very telling, you know, and very true.
Wow. Wow. Very interesting.
Mm.
Darn it. I had a thought and it just completely disappeared.
Well, that's the first symptom.
Yeah. Okay. Complete blank now.
Well, I can
Well,
give
let's see. Maybe we should go back to Space Command again
sure,
then. All
happy
right.
to. It's super fun.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
so now here it comes. So, in my opinion, one of the most popular characters in Star Trek Discovery is actually Saru.
yes, I think he's the best character on that show.
So I don't think they were expecting that to happen, especially
Yes.
since Doug Jones is under so much makeup.
Well, I can tell
But
you
you know,
why.
the amazing thing about him, somehow he gets this expression to come through that gigantic
Yes.
mask, and
And
you
well, yeah,
feel his emotion coming
yeah.
through, even on a close-in headshot.
No, I know. Well,
You know, it's amazing.
here's why that character works. I mean, you know, Doug Jones stars in Space Command as well,
Right.
and I cast him before Discovery did, and he has an amazing soul.
Hmm.
Anyone who meets him, his kindness, his genuineness,
It just
he's
exudes
just
out of him. Yeah.
everyone says the same thing when they meet him, which is, "What a great guy." And everyone is so glad of his success because he so deserves it. And and when I made the pitch to him for Space Command, I said, "Look, you have this great soul, and our job is simply to show the audience that. It's not about remembering all your lines. We can do it a bit at a time or whatever. We are just going to and in Space Command you get to see his actual face, you know, which
Right.
is rare. But the reason that Saru is such a great character is, first of all, Doug is a creature actor, so he knows how to, you know, I mean, it was Pan and Pan's Labyrinth and the creature in Shape of Water and all that stuff. He knows how to
Oh, he was the
project.
creature in Shape of Water?
Yes, yes, he
I didn't
was.
know that.
Well, there you go. He's and
Wow.
he was Abe Sapien in Hellboy. I mean, he's, you know, he's one of the lead creature actors, if not the lead creature actor. And but more than that, Saru is
Wow.
one of the few characters in that show who is selfless. Period. I mean, you know, all these other characters are acting out of their own weird motives, and
Their
sometimes
agendas.
yeah, sometimes they're jerks, or sometimes, you know, like they were talking about Michael, you know, like you know, mutinying in the first season,
But what
and
about David Ajala?
well,
I
I've
like
met
him.
David Atala, and I like him. I haven't watched the most recent season. I like I
Okay.
actually approached him to star in one of our projects, and he wasn't available at the time, but I like him very
Too
much.
bad.
And you know, but again, Saru is intelligent, kind. He's a loyal friend. He's
Hmm.
selfless. He's brave. I mean, he is one of the few characters on that show that actually would have fit perfectly in Star Trek: The Next Generation or the original Star Trek,
Hmm.
because he's heroic. And so you know, it's sort of like, which of these characters would you like to hang out with? Well, I'd like to hang out with that guy. And but
Yeah.
that's just because they're writing to Doug's strengths as a person and as a performer, as did I
Hmm.
on Space Command. And you know, I can't praise Doug highly enough. You know, I think he's just one of a kind and spectacular, and, you know, thrilling to work with. Just I have no negative comments about him at all. He's just wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Whew.
And Bob Picardo is the same. I mean, I love Bob as well, you know.
Yeah.
And Bill Mumy's in Space Command as well, and I've known him since I was 7, you know. So it's I'm just super lucky. It's really,
Okay.
and with Mira, I worked with her on Babylon 5 when I wrote for that show, and I mean, all the roles I've written in Space Command have been written for specific actors. I don't tend to just kind of write a role and then try and shoehorn an actor into it. No, I'm
You
creating.
already know who it is.
Yeah.
That's neat.
It's fun.
Wow. Well, we've actually we talked about this last time, but you also wrote for George Takei.
Yes, which was a great honor and
Yeah.
huge. Well, I realized and if you go on Mr. Sci-Fi, you can watch World Enough in Time, which was the Star Trek New Voyages episode I co-wrote and directed and executive produced. The star George Takei, and it's the great Sulu episode. And I realized at the time that they were never going to give him the great Sulu episode. They were never going to give him what he deserves. He's a spectacular actor. He's wonderful. And you get at the moment, it's funny because when in Star Trek 6, they wanted him to come back to the franchise, and he said, "I'm not going to be the navigator. You have to promote me to captain." And that's why he's a captain in that movie. But the moment you see him on the Excelsior, he's a great captain. And it's in a society that weren't racist, there would have been a Star Trek Captain Sulu series. There should have been. And in fact, I pitched one to CBS after I did World Enough in Time. There's a series Bible and an outline for a 2-hour pilot that I've posted in various places. And, and it was very clear when I went into CBS that they had no intention of ever doing a Captain Sulu series. Now, of course, it's a little too late to do that because George is in his 80s now. But back 15 years ago, he was in great shape and could have done it, hands down. But it's like my goal in my career has always been to, if there was something I wanted to say or something I wanted to do, to find the way to do it and not be limited by the racism or the sexism or the whateverism, the ageism of the studios and networks. It's not my job to be limited by them at all.
What's the deal? I mean, are they just really old school? They're still mad about World War II or what?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's simply that they view Star Trek and Star Wars, rightly so, as products. And so they're basically things to generate money. And so they're not fans in the way that the fans are. I think the fans would have hugely embraced the Captain Sulu series. I think it would have been a huge hit. But that's not the way they think of it. They think of it as like, okay, let's see. We just had this guy, this writer producer, be a hit on some show. Maybe it was Nash Bridges or whatever. Like back in the day, or insert the similar show now that has nothing to do with science fiction. And they say, well, we'll plug this guy into Star Trek, and then they're off and running. And it's like, well,
so they're always aiming for the 19 to 45-year-old white male demographic or something.
No. I don't know what they're aiming for. I don't know what they're doing. It's chaos, and like I'm about to post my commentary on Picard season 3, the first 3 episodes.
Okay.
And like, it's like, okay, half of it works, half of it doesn't. I mean, there's a lot of problems with it.
Might we dig into that for a second? Spoiler alert, we've seen 3. I saw an interesting thing on Twitter.
Yeah.
Where someone said, okay, this is a major spoiler alert, so turn off your ears if you haven't watched episode 3 yet. Somebody said, next time, will they please put a warning at the beginning if there's any ice scenes, because that was so traumatic I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, wow. Well, also they're cursing. So, they're saying all the major curse words, and it's like, Star Trek shouldn't be doing that. Star Trek shouldn't.
Well, they said damn in the original series.
Yeah, well, the thing that was a real blockbuster was at the end of City on the Edge of Forever, where Kirk says, "Let's get the hell out of here," and that was a big deal because you didn't have characters say hell.
You couldn't say hell
on TV.
I thought for sure Bones said hell quite a bit.
Nope. Go back.
He said, "What in blazes?" That's what he said.
Right. Great Caesar's Bones. But the thing is, that was justified because he had to watch Edith Keeler die. That was justified. But in Star Trek Discovery and in Picard, they're just cursing because they can. Yeah. And it's not appropriate. I'm not a prude, and I certainly have written, my share of cursing if it's an appropriate story.
It just wasn't worth it. Didn't really need to be there.
Well, if you're watching it with your kids, I want, like with Space Command, I want kids to be able to watch Space Command. I want families to be able to watch it. And it's not because I'm trying to sell them T-shirts, it's because I want them to be inspired and see the possibility of the future. I want them to see that we do not have to be, passive about the future. We
Thing is,
can't.
I mean, the world we live in now, at least back in the 60s, I don't know, maybe not, but it seemed like the 50s, 60s, and 70s, there was some shred of decorum still, and like the people would at least pretend that we lived in a civilized planet, at least in
Mm,
the USA.
well, I don't know.
Whereas, like right now, you just see so much
I think
chaos, and like, of course, I mean, politically and everything, just everything is so out the door, and everybody's just
put in
bullshitting everyone. Sorry.
well,
Okay, there.
yeah,
Okay, just a
but
sec.
also that,
All right,
but
just
just put in context. Yeah, no, 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 it's
I'll
fine.
take that out.
No, 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 you don't have to take it out because I think the point is this. People are always looking back toward nostalgically toward a better time, when we were all together and like Trump's America from the 50s. And it didn't exist. And I'll tell you exactly why.
Okay.
For the privilege, like for instance, the woman who's now up for Supreme Court justice, when she was born, it was illegal for her to marry a white man. And she's married to a white guy, and now it's no big deal.
Also, I just found out that it wasn't until the late 60s that it was even possible for a black woman to vote.
Well, I don't know. I mean, possibly. I mean, the Voting Rights Act brought that about. But the point is that during Star Trek, people forget that during 1966 to 1969, when Star Trek ran, you had the Vietnam War, you
Hmm.
had cities burning with riots, you
Right.
had the assassination of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. I mean, it was a chaotic and crazy time with
I get it.
a huge schism between the so-called moral majority and the hippies and the alternate, types and the science fiction weirdos. And yet, even with that, Gene Roddenberry had the courage to say, we can create a better future. We can take
Okay.
responsibility and we can create a future of compassion and kindness and inclusivity. And because Uhura was on Star Trek, you get black female astronauts and all sorts of stuff happening, and people
Hmm.
going into the sciences who normally would not have. And what had been a white men's club becomes much more open to people with the talents that getting the positions they deserve. And I think that's great. And now we're in a time where it's a backlash time, but that doesn't mean we should check out. It means we should step up. And
Okay.
because the news has a great quality of making everything seem equal, but in reality the majority of people are kind, the majority of people are looking to be helpful, the
Hmm.
majority of people, regardless of their political persuasion, unless there's some kind of really extreme nutcase, um, they want everyone to be healthy. They want everyone to be sheltered. They want everyone to, be fed. No one wants children to go hungry. No one wants a future in which despair is the only alternative. And I'm speaking of people on the right and the left.
Right.
There is common ground, and if you simply reach out to people with, open arms and with a positive attitude, it's not to be Pollyannish or see things through rose-colored glasses. It's just to say we the one race that matters is the human race. And if someone's getting a raw deal, it's all of our responsibility to turn that around. Whether it's a homeless guy that you step over, or someone who is not enjoying the privileges that others are. It shouldn't
Right.
not we're not I'm not in favor of the country club mentality. That's not how I grew up, and not the world I want to live in particularly.
Right. Um, of course, I mean, now with the internet and stuff, things have become globalized by quite a bit.
Yes.
Like, for example, now it's impossible to have the kind of propaganda that we had in World War II
Yes.
or after that, and actually be able to actually control the story. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, like
they try,
they
but
try now. They're trying. They're using old school techniques now, but I mean, you can't do it because of the internet, and you can't
well,
also
but it
shove. Once a person learns about a VPN, you can always
yeah.
make your computer seem like it's in a different country, so they can't even filter your internet access if
Yeah.
you're smart enough.
Well, again and
So
again, there's always gonna be forces of, dictatorship and autocracy, but now I was talking recently about the Ukrainian war,
yeah.
and, with World War II, you'd see newsreels or maybe a radio report, "Well, this is Edward Murrow in London," but it was distant. It was
Hmm.
distant, it was black and white, it was shot those newsreels were shot silent, and then they'd put in, sound effects of guns or
And it
whatever.
was staged, and they had the whole thing planned out. It was
Right.
still a show.
But
Right.
now it's instantaneous. You're seeing
Yeah.
stuff as it's happening. You're seeing how and so many Ukrainians speak English, and it
Mhm.
feels like these are people that might be your neighbors. In fact, they are. I have Ukrainians living across the street here in LA.
One of my
And
friends from high school is a nurse, and he's telling me he got in a big argument with his wife. His wife is Russian,
yes,
and they both speak Russian.
wow,
Even though, but he wants to go back. He wants to go to Ukraine and be a medic.
wow,
And both me and his wife, of course, trying to talk him out of it. I'm like, "Are you
yes,
crazy?
yes, yes,
They're blowing up everything. They don't care
yes,
what it is." But he's
yeah,
like, "I gotta go." And I'm like, "Why? You're not Ukrainian, you
yes.
know?" But
But this is speaking to people's conscience, and
yeah,
the fact that the majority of countries in the world are now saying to Russia, "You must stop this," because children are being murdered. I mean,
yeah,
it's
it's
murder.
insane.
It's not. I mean, this is not a conflict between rival armies. This is murder,
I mean,
and
and also, what are they trying to gain? What are they going to get out of just basically the only thing it seems like all they're trying to do right now is just decimate the entire country.
yes,
So what are
and
you going to gain from that?
well, it doesn't, Putin doesn't think that way. He just wants his way. But
Exactly.
hopefully sanity will prevail, and this thing will end. And I think Zelensky is doing an amazing job, and I
Yeah.
think it's heroism, pure and simple. And I hope it has a good outcome. I want it to have a good outcome.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Mm.
Hmm. Okay. So so all of Space Command is written, or is there a possibility to somehow incorporate the Ukrainian war into the script in some
Well,
kind of
we're
way?
definitely gonna put the Robbie the robot and the cello and you in a spacesuit. We're definitely gonna do that. That's
Oh,
that's
good.
that's
All right.
that's a no brainer. But the way it works with science fiction, the next after we finish shooting Forgiveness, which is the two-part story we're shooting now, the
Okay.
next one is the Great Solar War, and that's a big interstellar, intergalactic war story, interplanetary war story,
Okay.
and the issue in that one is the enemy is not the guy on the other side. The enemy is the notion of war, the fact that
Oh.
war is acceptable at all when it is,
Oh.
and the fact that we are, that we cannot continue with this notion of war being acceptable. And interesting enough, one of the projects we've been doing is a mini series based on the experiences of Lord Peter Hain, who is a member of parliament. He's in the House of Lords, and he was a major apartheid activist in South Africa, and a leading peace proponent in the Irish, ending the troubles there, and negotiator. And we've been talking to him about, well, how when you bring warring factions into a room, how do you find common ground? How do you find your way to peace? And it's been very interesting having those conversations. So Elaine and I are going to be doing a new draft of the Great Solar War
Okay.
very, very soon, and that's the next one we'll be shooting. So you basically, with science fiction, you look at what's going on, the big issues: life, death, war, love, belonging, all the major things, and you find the way to process that through the lens of science fiction, so
Hmm.
that it remains current. It's fascinating because science fiction has a currency. Star Trek or Twilight Zone, those episodes still work, and it's because they aren't overtly commenting on the specific issue of the day. And
Oh.
so Kick the Can, a story like Kick the Can on Twilight Zone, that's timeless, about aging and death, and how to stay young, how to stay connected. I mean, that there's wisdom there. And
Okay.
so I love science fiction for that very quality. There are things I wrote in my 20s that still have so much resonance now, and I'm very proud of that.
Wow. So in a sense, I think what you're saying is science fiction has sort of become our mythology.
Yeah,
Is that
in a way, but it also teaches without lecturing. It's
okay?
not, you can't. You have to tell a story, and that story has to be entertaining. But it kind of, whereas you might have a conversation that polarizes people if you're talking about the modern times like Trump or whatever. In science fiction, you can bring in people of different political persuasions where they can agree on certain bottom lines,
Mm.
it's the thought of war, it's the acceptance of war that's so destructive. It's the because because someone who is our enemy one day is our ally the next. George Orwell got it right in 1984. It's like you're propagandized to believing someone is your enemy when they're not. 20, 30 years ago, during the Soviet Union, you would have, Americans would have said, well, the Ukrainians are our enemies. Well, they're
Right.
not. They're people. And the Russian people aren't our enemy. It's this one guy. This
Right.
one guy, Putin. I mean, even his own cabinet, you can tell when they're sitting with him at that insanely long table,
I
and they're going,
know.
maybe we should try one last attempt at diplomacy before we invade them. And Putin's going, you don't mean that, do you? And the guy doesn't want to end up in Siberia or whatever. And so he goes, no, of course I don't mean it. We'll invade. It's like, well, but but that's where democracy is so important and autocracy is so dangerous, because you can't have power win the day. You have to have, representative government win the day, because then when the people are ill used by their government, they can throw those people out, and that's super important.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Since we're on this topic,
Sure.
here's a really weird one for you. Biden's talking about World War III happen, and he's like, I want to just make sure we don't have World War III.
Sure.
Meanwhile, I'm noticing how much the Russian military is screwing up in Ukraine, and I'm thinking in my mind, you know what? If we got in a war with the Russians, we'd kick their ass from a military point of view.
Well, it depends on
And
how.
then,
Yeah.
just, I think we would.
Well.
But the thing is then, but surprisingly, even me, now, if this were the 80s, everyone would be sitting up at night terrified that we were about to have a nuclear war and the whole planet's going to be blown up.
Yes.
But right now, we're all taking it lightly, like, it won't happen. We got to, So I'm thinking, okay, we've got some kind of crazy leaders, and somehow the world survived when supposedly this person was able to, with carrying around a suitcase that enabled them to launch all these nuclear missiles at their whim. And it didn't happen. So I have a new theory.
Okay.
Maybe this is a story. I have a theory that there's an underground in all the governments that's now in place, and maybe it's been in place for decades, where they know, the guy in charge is nuts, and no matter what, we're not pushing that button. Like, we're just all going to agree, no matter what they say, we're not going to launch these missiles because it's insanity. So I think actually there's those kind of fail safes have been in place for quite a while now, and that's why we're not in a nuclear war right now with Russia.
But I wouldn't count on that. And it's sort of like, maybe you're right, but I mean, when you look at nuclear war and when you look at the stockpiles, I mean, it's extremely dangerous. It's amazing we have not had a major nuclear accident. I mean, we've had power plants going to melt down, but we haven't lost a city. Like New
Right.
York is still
Well,
there.
a power plant isn't going to blow up.
No.
If it melts down, it literally melts down.
Well,
It takes a giant hole
right,
and a lot of radiation, but it doesn't cause a nuclear explosion.
But if the containment vessel explodes, from fire or whatever, then it spreads an enormous amount of contamination.
Right, it's a major
So yeah, I mean,
radiation problem.
Yeah. But you won't ever have a nuclear explosion at a
It's
power.
not like an H bomb's going to go off or something.
Right. It's a totally different machine. But here's the thing. I don't want to risk nuclear war, but see what now I think is going to happen, I hope, is that there'll be so much pressure put on Putin that ultimately he'll just say, look, you guys, if you agree not to go into NATO, and you don't have military bases on your, land,
Why would they agree not to go into NATO after all this?
Well, they have to do that, because otherwise Putin won't leave. And so
they can say that, and then they can change their mind 6 months later.
Potentially, but again, the issue is, how do you get out of this thing?
Yeah.
And because there's only one aggressor, and it's that guy.
Well, the thing that's also interesting is that as the word gets out, you start to realize that the Russian troops and the guys that are invading are like, why the hell are we here?
Yes,
So
exactly.
the next thing that might happen is I mean, who knows? I don't know how it works, how tight of a grip they have on them, but if they run out of supplies, or, I mean, you might start to see a lot of desertions.
Well, hopefully. I mean, hopefully, and but again, this is new territory, so we'll see what happens. But but hopefully people of goodwill will prevail, and we'll see what
Yeah,
happens.
it's a major mess, that's for
Oh yeah,
sure.
oh yeah, but that's why science fiction is fun, because you can write about this stuff
Yeah.
through a different lens, and have people perceive things in a different way. It's great. I love working in this genre.
So this great solar war, is this like the entire galaxy is about to go to war, or
It's
what's
basically, we have United Planets, which is the colonized worlds of our solar system, and then you have this character Odin Sikander, who is sort of the warlord of the outer planets and colonized moons, and there's a war going on. But he has an ace up his sleeve that our guys don't know about, where he's going to kick our ass.
Oh,
And
so
there's
it's confined just to our solar system?
Yes, yes, but
Okay.
it does introduce an alien race, and I won't go into more detail than that.
No
But
spoilers.
yeah, no spoilers. But it's but the interesting thing is, I'm very interested in cause and effect, and that's why Space Command covers 200 years in the lives of four families, and we jump back and forth between generations. And so in the first 2-hour episode, again, without giving spoilers, Bob Picardo has a little boy who's like
Hmm.
around 10, and something happens that lands on this kid very badly, and he ends up growing up to be that warlord. He becomes sort of the Alexander the Great of the solar system, because he's so embittered. Yes, what?
Sorry.
No.
It just occurred, when you write these epic stories,
Yes.
do you go back to classic literature? Like, I mean, do you go back and take a Bible story and rewrite it, for example?
Not so much the Bible. But I'm always reading books on science, books on history. I'm fascinated by the Roman Empire and Alexander the Great and Civil War stuff and World War II stuff. And
Okay.
so I'm always reading something on one of those things. I mean, I came up with an idea for a story that I haven't yet done, but it's a really cool story. So I've been reading up on the slave revolt in Haiti, that basically got,
Okay.
where it happened in the 1820s. And I've been lately, for the Showrunners Network, I've been writing down, like, ideas, and I've got about 500 of them now. And one of the
Okay.
ones I came up with was something that no one's ever thought of, which is an
Wait a
alternate.
minute. Now you're contradicting yourself, because I was on a live stream briefly, and one of the
Sure.
things you said is you don't have to come up with an original story, because whatever it is, it's guaranteed somebody's already done it. What matters is how well you do it.
It's you can, every now and then, you can come up with a story no one has done before. I don't think anyone had done anything like Far Beyond the
Ooh.
Stars before,
Okay.
okay, or City on the Edge of Forever.
Okay.
But most stories, it's the details that make them fresh, and the structure is familiar. So, but that's okay. That's okay, because that makes it resonate emotionally.
Okay.
But
There's
the
some
idea,
context for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I
All right.
love alternative history stories, having been a producer on Sliders and a writer on that show. And the idea I came up with was an alternative history where the slave revolt in Haiti, which succeeded, whereas most slave revolts did not, including Spartacus. Um, in this case, in this alternate history, the slave revolt led to America, and the southern states, the slaves revolted and won. And
Okay.
so all of the white people in the South were refugees into the North. And for 200 years, there have been two Americas, one a Black America in the southern states, and one a white America in the northern states. And it would be what that brings about. So it would start in the 20s, 30s. So there was no civil war other than this, the slave revolt.
Hmm.
And so you would dramatize that happening, and then you would jump to the modern day and show the ramifications of it. And I just find it really interesting. But I haven't written it yet, but I like it a lot. And so I've been reading up on the slave revolt in Haiti and so forth, and also, of course, slave issues here in America, which has long interested me.
Right.
So, mm, so there you
Yeah.
go. Just
So
stuff.
that's the key. I mean, so the key to your writing, obviously, is that it's, even though it's sci-fi and maybe even might even call it fantasy,
Yeah,
it always is rooted in just all this
real
real
world.
stuff.
Yeah, sure. And
Yeah.
it'll be personal experience and world experience and just everything. I mean, I'm very interested in the people who don't count, quote unquote, the invisible people, the people you can do anything to because they don't matter, and making those people visible, making them, um, have equal dignity and equal humanity. That's forever. I mean, as the, I mean, my family came out of the Holocaust, and so those
Oh,
issues.
you
Yeah,
never talked to. Can you talk about that?
sure. I mean, my grandfather, my mom's dad, he was drafted into the Russian army in World War One, and it was well known that Jews were just like cannon fodder. So he deserted and came to France and became a cook for the American army in World War One, and then that led ultimately to him coming over to America. And it took him 11 years to be able to earn enough to bring his wife and my aunt over. And then my mom was born in Chicago, and everyone else in my grandfather's family, everyone who stayed in that village in Poland, was exterminated. So if my grandfather had not deserted and ended up in, America, my grandfather would have been exterminated, my mother would have been exterminated, my aunt, everyone, and I wouldn't exist. So the
Okay.
Holocaust is not a distant historical event to me. It's an extremely visceral event. And
Personal.
yeah, yeah, and so I'm very aware that it isn't that far a leap from having our rights taken away. We came
Hmm.
very close recently, and I think it's
Hmm.
appalling what's happening with voting rights. When I go to vote, it's only a few minutes, and I walk around the corner to the park near me, and it's easy. That's how it should be for everyone. It shouldn't be an
Right.
8-hour wait where you're legally forbidden to give anyone food or water. That should be illegal. That even thinking up a law like that should be illegal.
Yeah. Of
You
course,
know?
I live in the Seattle area, and
Mhm.
so they they have mail-in voting up here, so that solves all that. But of course,
Yes.
last election they were trying to say that that's fraudulent because
Yes.
that kind of blows their whole plan. But
Well, evil has many ways to win, and you have to be ever vigilant. And anything that takes away people's right to vote, anything that takes away their right to be treated equally, I
mhm.
strongly believe is wrong.
Yeah.
The great American experiment. I mean, it's funny. There's always been two Americas. There's the America of colonialism and racism and all these things, the Vietnam War, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But also there's the America of the Statue of Liberty, and
Yeah.
and the American dream and the American haven. And that's
Okay,
not
but you
that.
can peel it back one more, and don't forget that the whole thing's built on the Native Americans that we basically
Yes,
exterminated.
yes, yes. So it's what I'm saying is that both are true, equally true.
Yeah.
And so, but my favorite poem is the poem on the Statue of Liberty, because it's the one that says it's not inviting just poor people to come, it's the wretched refuse of your the teeming multitudes. Give me your tired, your poor. I mean, it's like, send your worst people here, send your most battered people here, and we will give them a haven. We will give them opportunity and possibility, and that's a miracle. I mean, here I am, very much the result of that promise. I'm
Right.
the first person in my family to be in showbiz. I didn't
Ooh.
I didn't get in because my uncle Manny was head of a studio or something. You know.
Okay, two questions,
Sure,
completely unrelated.
please.
Number one, I finally remembered what that thought was that I forgot about a half hour ago,
Good.
which
I'm
is
glad.
there's the other theory that the reason why we haven't had a nuclear war
Yes.
is because when we're right on the brink and it's about to happen, then the aliens come and they save us. But they're
Right.
invisible, so we don't see them. But they behind the scenes,
Right.
these alien races that are always watching over Earth
Hmm.
and making sure that we don't blow up their little
Yeah.
aquarium experiment have to sometimes step in and make things
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then they go away so that their experiment can keep going.
Yeah. Lots of
So
luck
what do
on
you think
that.
about that theory?
I wouldn't count on it. I mean, people have an amazing way of picking things up, and you know,
Oop, wait a minute. That was an F bomb. So,
sorry. But no, but seriously, I think it's a miracle that we haven't had a major nuclear accident. I mean, just
it
an
is.
accident. I watched that documentary on PBS recently about the nuclear missile that almost detonated because someone dropped a wrench, and it caused the fuel to start venting. It was that close. And so it's, we've been very close in the Cuban Missile Crisis, all that stuff. We have been very close, and I don't think we're out of the woods yet. But I just hope that that stuff doesn't happen. Like you, I pray that people of conscience will be the ones who decide not to turn that switch.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the one unrelated question. And the other one was, um, I'm assuming you went to college, right?
Yeah, yeah,
What was your major?
painting, sculpture, and graphic arts. So I was enrolled by mistake. I never applied for that major. I applied as an undeclared major in the College of Letters and Sciences to UCLA, thinking I would decide whether I wanted to be a visual artist or a writer. And then they sent me this paperwork saying you've been accepted as an art major. You're supposed to show portfolio and meet with faculty. I did none of that. It was a clerical error. But because I've been painting and sculpting and drawing, and I thought this is the hand of fate, so I'll go. And I got my degree in that. So somewhere there's some poor CPA who should have gotten my life. And but it's like, but I did fine because I had those skills, and I had gallery shows when I was a teenager, gallery shows of my artwork and photography.
Okay.
But then I went to the Clarion Writers Workshop when I was 19 and sold my first short story to Damon Knight, and from then on, I knew I was gonna be a writer and not a visual artist. But still, there's many, ways that my skill as an artist has helped me designing sets and all sorts
I
of
was
stuff.
going to
Well
say, do you
well,
find yourself on the set
yes. Well, I'll tell
painting
you
it
something
and
funny.
so on?
I have a visual aid. I'll show you this. It's really funny.
Okay.
So when I was an art student at UCLA, I would go to the job boards to see if there was, different job openings. And one of them was there was a movie starting up, pre-production, and they wanted someone to do Flash Gordon style artwork. So I thought, well, Flash Gordon, okay, I know Flash Gordon. So I did this as a sample. I did several other samples too, but I
Oh,
drew.
wow.
That's
So
meaning the
that's from Flash Gordon, the TV show, right?
Well, it's from the newspaper strip, which came first,
Oh,
Ming the
okay.
Merciless. And then I also did a color version of it. I don't know if you can see it,
Oh,
but there's the color version there.
okay.
And I didn't ultimately get that job. I did several other illustrations too, but the guy they hired was Ralph McQuarrie, and the guy who hired him was George Lucas. So I actually I actually auditioned for Ralph McQuarrie's job when it was the Star Wars. And so that's pretty hilarious.
Did
And
you ever consider going into political cartoons?
No, no, because I was never that kind of I mean, I read political cartoons. I'm a huge fan of Ron Cobb, who was a friend of mine who went into designing aliens and so forth, Total Recall. But he started as a political cartoonist, and I read various cartoonists like Conrad, who was here in the LA Times. But no, it never appealed to me. It wasn't my thing. I was always much more the science fiction weirdo, the TV weirdo, uh,
Okay.
books. I mean, when I was like younger, like I was in my teens, I wrote down what I wanted to do with my life, and I said I want to write hour drama, I want to write half-hour comedy, I want to write TV movies, I want to write films, I want to write books, I want to write radio plays. There might have been one or two other things, but I've done all those things, and I want to direct.
Wow.
So I've done all of that stuff, and so I don't have regrets. I just have things still want to do, but I'm in a position of power now where I can. So I
So, so basically, and you were like 19 when you wrote this down, or
something like that, yeah,
in
18,
a
19.
diary or something, or?
I put it somewhere, but I remember it, because I've always been very driven, very directional.
So
Uh,
there's this 19-year-old up there that's working the strings of your life, and so you're still basically controlled by that teenager,
well,
even
it's funny.
now.
It's funny because one time I was sitting with Ray Bradbury in his house, and he said, "I have a secret to tell you." He was in his like late 80s at the point. He kind of motioned me closer, and I leaned in, and he leaned in, and he whispered, "I'm 13 years old." It was true. Inside, he still was, and so it's like we all have that child self that we're servicing the dream self. Like when I was a kid, I got to go on the set of the original Star Trek for the last episode they ever shot, Turnabout Intruder, and to sit in the captain's chair and stand on the transporter, and it was a dream come true. And now when I stand on my own spaceship sets, I get the same excitement, the same feeling. It's incomparable. I love it.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm,
Amazing.
yeah. I mean,
Well,
what better life could I have?
really. And you're still going full speed ahead.
Yes. I'm working more. I won't say harder exactly, but I'm certainly as active as I've ever been in my
Right.
career. I mean, the good part about coming up in television was that I learned very early on how to multitask. Even when I was writing for Smurfs and He-Man, and so forth in my early 20s, I would be writing a script and outlining for another show, or at the same time, I might also be working on Twilight Zone companion. All you learn how to balance your time. So for me, like right now, for instance, I had a meeting this morning where we're doing post production on the second hour of Space Command and some little tweaks on the first hour to
Right.
release the Blu-ray. In the next few weeks, and this at the
I have
same
this,
time
by the way.
great, lovely. It's terrific. But I'm also we're storyboarding a sequence we're going to be shooting for the sixth hour. So I'm doing that right now. We're going to be shooting this next scene for the sixth hour in about a week, probably 2 weeks, maybe. I'm laying out the entire season of Space Command, how we're going to rewrite it. I'm eagerly awaiting the release of the new book. I'm multitasking. I
Right.
always do that, and I'm doing Mr. Sci-Fi stuff. I'm doing videos for Mr. Sci-Fi that are quite fun, and and laying and doing all the stuff for the Showrunners Network, the other 5 shows, and
Yeah. So you're a Gemini, right?
I'm Virgo,
Really?
detail oriented, and my wife is a Leo, and but
Ooh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, but it's funny because I have people I work with who've come out of features, and they're very much like you do one thing and then you go on to the next thing, and
Well,
that's not.
that's what a Virgo is supposed to do is be much more methodical than that.
I'm
And you are,
methodical
but
I'm methodical to the degree that I can multitask and I can see things. I mean, it was amazing just when last week someone threw out that Trinitron stand, and I immediately saw how it could fit into the set on the space station, and I brought it in, and when they put it together, it looked spectacular, and so I was like, that was in the back of my head,
when
and
I
that.
was a kid,
Mhm.
the color TV we had was a Sony Trinitron.
Yeah, they were the best. They were
That's
the
what I
best.
watched Star Trek on.
Yeah, one gun color TV. My dad
Yep.
was my dad for many years was a TV repairman, so I know a lot about old style tube and solid state televisions. Yeah, I know. But God, they weigh a lot. When you
Yeah.
compare that with a modern TV set, it's just crazy. But I love
Yeah.
the old TVs. I have a Philco Predicta in my other room here, which is that 1950s television set with the picture tube on a neck that
Oh,
turns and
cool.
the chassis. It's a great look.
Jetsons.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, really fun.
Wow,
Thank
that's
you,
really
eBay.
cool.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. eBay's a godsend.
Amazing. Okay. Well, we're approaching 90 minutes, so we probably should wrap it up.
Yeah, you bet.
Um, well, we didn't actually talk that much about Space Command.
Well, people
We
can
kind
go
of
on
went all over the
Sci-
place.
people can go on Mr. Sci-Fi and watch Space Command and the first hours on the landing page, and we're going to be putting out the link
Link in the
soon.
description.
Yes, and
Yeah.
we'll be putting out a link soon on Mr. Sci-Fi where people can buy, pre-order the DVDs and Blu-rays because they'll be completed in the next few weeks. And
Great.
and it has all sorts of extras on it. I mean, like audio commentaries and featurettes about behind the scenes stuff and really cool things. And stuff from the Comic-Con panels we've done and all
Right.
of them. And there's this tribute to Mira Furlan on it as well.
Oh,
You
great.
know, and the first 2 hours are dedicated to Mira because
Great.
for obvious reasons.
Right.
So yeah, but so life is good, no complaints.
Speaking of Comic-Con, are you going to any more conventions like that
Yes,
soon?
yes. I'm always balancing between when I'm in active production and when I'm promoting Space Command by going to
Mm.
conventions. I really loved New York Comic Con, but I've only been once to that one. I've been to San Diego Comic Con pretty much every year that they've had it, other than the pandemic, and in the last 10 years, let us say. But yeah, I'll go to more conventions, and we're also going to have a premiere at the Chinese Theater in Hollywood for the first 2 hours of Space Command, a red carpet premiere. That'll
Oh, cool.
probably be late April, early May, the way things are looking. And you'll be invited, of course, Matt.
Oh,
And
yeah, I'd love to come.
it's going to be super fun. It's going to be super fun. But I just am very eager to
Okay.
do that. That's like, for the people who come to it to go to a red carpet premiere at the Chinese Theater. I mean, that's Hollywood to a T.
That's
So
cool.
it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Neat. Okay. Well, it's great to talk to you again, Mark.
You bet.
And super fascinating stuff. And we'll have to do a third interview at some point
Of
because
course.
now there's more things I want to ask you. But
Yes.
it's
This is
endless. It's just like you keep pulling back the onion, and there's like more and
yeah.
more and more.
Yes. But that's because I learned early on from my mentors like Harlan and Ray Bradbury and Ted Sturgeon. to really, and even Serling, to follow what I loved, to do what I loved. Every time I followed something that I was really in love with, whether it was the Twilight Zone companion or working for Star Trek or any of these things, everything came out really well.
Yeah.
I've never really been a calculating person in the way of saying, oh, well, my career needs this or my career needs that. It's like, no, I just was,
Follow.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And I've been super lucky, but also I've had wonderful friends and mentors, and that's been just great.
Right.
I love science fiction.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. Oh, now my communicator's beeping again. I thought
Yes.
I turned it off.
Well, you're needed on
Okay.
the ship. You're needed on
Ooh,
the
my
ship.
wife's calling me. If I don't answer that, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yes, I think on
But
that note.
yeah, so very good. And then just send me if any clips. Do you have any new clips of Space Command that you want me
Yes,
to put in the description too, or
sure. I mean, I'll give that a little thought because we have stuff. Yeah, there's stuff,
okay,
and but I think just a link to that first hour is a good place to start because it really shows
okay.
what you're up to.
And then
So
I'll put what I've been doing lately on my channel when we do these interviews is I put like graphics up above us
yeah,
of
great,
like a strip of like 4 or 5 things,
cool.
mostly just to fill up the space, but it's also cool because during the conversation you can just sort of zone out on the stuff, and if it's well placed and
Yes,
relevant to what we're talking about, then it
yeah,
really kind of
yeah.
enhances the interview.
That's great. That's
So
great. Love it.
yeah,
Well, great. Well, it's been
right.
fun talking to you, Matt, as always.
You
Looking forward.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll meet again.
well, more
We
fun to
will.
come.
I look forward to going to that red carpet thing. So
It's going to
just
be great fun, and our actors will be there, and it's going to be a good time had by all. We'll probably have an after party at a nearby restaurant, so
oh,
it's going to be well worth attending. So, well,
excellent.
thanks a lot, and we'll talk soon. And anytime you want to come
Okay.
on set and watch us shoot, you're always welcome.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna take you up on that too.
and we'll do that Robbie the Robot thing. That'll be super fun.
Yeah, Robbie the robot with the cello.
Yes, yes, yes. That'll be hilarious.
Very good. Okay,
Hey,
Mark. Take care. Till next time.
you too. Take
We'll
care.
see.
Bye, Matt. Talk soon.
Pranakasha Production. Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life.
For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
We gotta